Well, hello everybody. This is Linda from North Central Texas, or Lady in the Garden. As you know, I made a great big pot of chili beans, and I want some really good cheesy bread to go with my beans. So we're going to bake us a homemade cheese bread today. I've had warm water sitting in my um, bowl here, trying to warm it up a little bit, because you know how aluminum is. It gets, or stainless steel, it gets pretty cold. Now I've got a half a cup of warmed buttermilk that I'm going to add. I've got a third a cup of water heated up to room temperature. It's about 110 degrees. I'm going to put one package of dry yeast or instant yeast. It comes to 2 1/4 teaspoons, and that's what is called for in the recipe. So if you've got one package of this yeast, it's going to work fine. So just add that in there. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. We're going to take a whisk and just kind of whisk that together, mix it up. Oh, it smells so good. I love the smell of yeast, y'all. That should be good. Now I'm just going to take my towel and cover it for about 5 minutes. And I'll bring you back in about 5 minutes and we'll do the rest of it. Okay, it's been 5 minutes. Our dough is all bubbled up, foamy looking. So now we're going to add our butter, which is 5 tablespoons of unsalted butter or margarine, either one. We're going to put in 1 egg at room temperature if you have it. I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of salt. Um, 3/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. And we're going to add 1 cup of our flour. I'm going to put a dough hook on. And then we're going to beat this or mix it up on a low speed for about 30 seconds. I'm going to pull down the flour from the sides. And we're going to add our remaining 2 cups of flour. Now this can be bread flour or just plain flour, all-purpose flour. The bread flour works the best, but you can use regular flour. I'm using the regular flour. Now we're going to knead this with the dough hook until it's dough and it pulls away from the sides of it. Probably for 5 or 10 minutes. About 2 minutes. But you got to get it away from the sides. It's pulling away from the sides. So it says to beat it for another 5 minutes, or you can knead it with your hands, either one. I'm going to do it with the mixer. I'll let the dough hook do the work. Set my timer for 5 minutes. Looks good, y'all. And yes, it's such a detailed directions and ingredients and everything that I do have it written down. I've had it in my Betty Crocker cookbook, so I do have to refer to it. I can tell you, if your dough is too wet, you can add a little bit of flour. And mine is kind of sticking to the bottom. But you only want to add a little bit at a time. Maybe a couple of tablespoons at a time. And I'm going to use my spatula to kind of get the dough away from the sides of the bottom, because I want it all to incorporate real well together. I don't want any left in the bottom of my mixer. I want it all in my dough ball. Add just a little bit more because it's sticking tight into the bottom. Don't want much because you don't want to get your dough too dry. This is working a lot better after I put a couple of tablespoons of flour in there. Now let's see. Well, let's see. It is a little tacky. They say to do a window pane test. I don't know how really you do that. I think it needs a little more flour. And I've got to go open a bag of flour because I don't really have any more in here. Don't need much more, but I will need more flour when I get ready to roll this out. I've got flour in the fold of the top of the bag. Now, just leave that there. And that should be about 5 minutes. Oh, let's see. They want you to have it pass the window pane test. I've never done that before, y'all. But I definitely think it needs more flour. Might get a little bit more out of here. Maybe as much as I need anyway. We having fun yet? Get a little bit of flour on my fingers, maybe. I don't know how they do this. I really don't. But they say to stretch it out. And if you see daylight through it without it breaking, your dough is ready. Well, it looks like my dough is ready. It's called the window pane test. Now what we're going to do, we're going to lightly grease a bowl. I mean, you can do it with butter, you can do it with oil, whatever you want to use. I'm going to put a little bit of butter. I've got it right here handy. And it is margarine, y'all. I keep calling it butter. But to me, if you use it as butter, it's butter. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to place the dough in here. I'm trying to get it all down from the bottom. It is a little bit tacky, not much, but just get it out there in your bowl the best you can. And it says turning it while you're shaping it into a ball, coating the oil all over your dough ball. You want it thoroughly coated. Shape it into a ball. Just like so. That way, as it rises, it's not going to hopefully stick to your bowl. Now what we're going to do, you can cover it with saran wrap, you can cover it with aluminum foil. In my case, I'm covering it with a towel. And this is the first rise. We're going to let it rise for 1 to 2 hours, or 1.5 hours to 2 hours, until it's doubled in size. Once it's doubled in size, we'll come back and we'll show you what else we're going to do. Okay, my dough has doubled its size. So now what we're going to do, we're going to get it ready to go in the pan. First of all, you got to punch down your dough. And I'm going to place it on this lightly floured mat. We're through with the bowl. I have to get it to where I can do some kind of a rolling consistency. Now we're going to try to get it to like 9 inches by 15. Or 9 by 16. an oblong, rectangle, hopefully. Do the best you can to get it in a rectangle. It's not cooperating fully, but oops. But this is probably close enough. Now we're going to leave about 1/2 inch or so around the edge. But I've got an 8-ounce package of cheddar cheese. You can use any kind of cheese you want. I prefer the cheddar with this, because I like eating it with my chili beans, and I like cheddar cheese with my chili beans. Now this is 2 cups of grated cheddar cheese, or shredded. And like I said, don't take it all the way to the edge. Just leave about 1 inch all around the edge of it. But try to divide your cheese out really well. Just kind of evenly distribute it. Now I'm going to tightly, or try to tightly, roll my dough, and this will be the long way, right over my cheese. So when it's done, we've got our pastry roll. And I need some more flour under there. We're going to make the seam at the very bottom. We're going to take a serrated knife. Serrated, I don't say that correctly. And we're going to cut it right down the center the long way. Now we're going to separate. We'll try to separate. I'm going to place one end under the other. Kind of like that. And that was not supposed to come apart. It's a little tricky to do this, but you can get it done. And we're just going to kind of twist it together. You might have to put your cheese back in. Some of it anyway. And I've got my baking dish already greased. Now I'm going to see if I can get this in without dumping it all. You just have to kind of work with the dough to get it to a solid piece to where you can transfer it from your baking or from your rolling mat to your baking dish. The best you can. I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of my cheese back on the top. Now we're going to let this rest for 30 minutes. And again, I'm going to cover it with my towel. And we're just going to let it rest for 30 minutes. I'll leave it right there for 30 minutes. And I got to set my timer. And before your 30 minutes is up, wait about 15 minutes and then start preheating your oven to 350 degrees. And I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, and we'll come back and I'll show you what we do to put it in the oven to bake it. Well, it's been 30 minutes. Look at there. It's even risen even more than it was. We're still not right ready to put it in the oven though. I've got 2 tablespoons of melted butter. I've got about a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. And I've got about a teaspoon and a half of dried parsley right out of the garden. That's some of that I had dried the other day. Now what we're going to do is brush this generously all over the top of this loaf of bread before we bake it. And like I said, I've already got my oven preheating to 350. You want to lower your rack down to the third rung in your oven. I have already lowered mine because mine was on the top. But this butter is not only going to make it pretty when it bakes, but it's going to make it really good. Anytime you put butter and garlic and parsley on something, you know it's going to be good. And I'm trying not to skimp on it because it said, you know, that was what you're supposed to put on there, so that's what I'm putting on it. And some of it will go down into the cheese, down in between the rolls. But it's going to be good. Now you can buy cheese bread at the bakeries, at most grocery stores now, like H-E-B, Kroger, Walmart, Brookshire's. They all have fresh baked bread. But I'll guarantee you it's not going to be like this fresh baked bread that you do yourself. Sorry about that, y'all. I've also got a baking tray that I'm going to put this on. No, I don't know why I'm I guess I was out in the wind too much today, breathing all that stuff. But I'm going to put it on a baking tray just in case, so when the dough starts rising and it starts cooking, if there's any cheese that comes over the side, it's not going to go in the bottom of my oven. It'll go on this pan. Be a lot easier to get it up off the pan than it will be my oven. Now, we're going to bake this at 350 degrees for 45 to 55 minutes. If you find the top is getting too brown, you can take a piece of aluminum foil and tint your loaf, kind of like you do your turkey when you're roasting it at Thanksgiving, to keep your turkey from getting too brown on top. You can tint a piece of aluminum foil over it, and that helps prevent the top from getting too brown. It says the person who did this originally, they said they usually, like my mom and people, they usually let it bake for about 25 minutes, and then they'll tint the loaf with aluminum foil to make sure the top doesn't get too brown. Because you know the cheese is going to melt and it's going to get brown pretty easy, and you don't want it to get too brown. But we're going to go ahead and bake it for 45 to 55 minutes. And then we got to let it cool a little bit. Cool at least for 10 minutes before we can cut into it. But don't forget to lower your rack down to your third rung, your third level. You don't want it too high, because all the heat rises and it will definitely get too brown if it's at the very top of your oven. Now we're going to let that bake, and I'll bring you back. Well, y'all, my timer went off. It's been 55 minutes. So we're going to check on our bread. It's been smelling really good. Oh my goodness, look at that. And it did kind of boil over the edges. I got grease, or butter, not grease. It was butter that fell out. Because some of my butter and my cheese boiled over in the pan. That's why you want to make sure you have a drip pan under it. And like this right here, you see this a little bit? It's dripping over the side of the pan. So I just kind of stuck it back on it so I wouldn't lose too much cheese. And I had to taste the cheese. Oh my goodness, it's so good. But we got to let this cool for about 10 minutes before I can even attempt to get it out of this baking dish, because it's too hot right now. But don't that look good, y'all? Oh my God, look at that. Look at that loaf of cheese bread. That looks good, y'all. But we're going to wait about 10 minutes, give it time to cool and rest a little bit. And I did not tint it. I got aluminum foil out to put tint over it, but I kept checking it. And I didn't want it to burn or anything, but I wanted it a pretty brown to match the cheese. And I think I accomplished that. So we're going to wait for our 10 minutes. Well, it's been 10 minutes. I don't know if this has cooled long enough, but I'm anxious to see. Whew. I think it has cooled long enough. still hot. But it did cool. Look at that, y'all. Don't that look good? Let me get a knife that I think might be good to cut it. I'm not sure. I'm anxious to see the inside. Well, the end is, it's got cheese, but I'm sure the other parts is, let's see. We'll cut a couple of pieces off the end of it. Oh yeah, that is looking good, y'all. Look at that. Just look at that bread. That is going to be some of the best cheesy bread in the world, y'all. You can see the cheese inside the bread. You can see it in there in the loaf. This is going to be some good bread. I can't wait to eat it with a bowl of my beans, my chili beans. But the outside is all crunchy. Look at that. You got all that cheese inside. That garlicky taste with the butter and the cheese. It's real soft. I mean, you know, it's yeast bread, but it's got all that cheese and the garlic and the butter and the parsley. That's some good bread right there. Y'all need to try you some. And the outside is even better because it's crunchy with all the flavor of the garlic and the butter and the parsley and the cheese. That is so good. Isn't this some of the best cheese bread you've ever looked at in your life? Right out of the oven. It is steaming hot. That's going to go fantastic with my bowl of chili beans tonight. I can't wait. Like I said, this is the best cheesy bread in the world, y'all. Make you some. It's really good. It'll go great with any pasta dish or chili beans. I'm eating mine with some chili beans. So y'all try your loaf of cheesy bread. I think you'll love it. Not that hard to fix. It just takes a little bit of time for the yeast to rise and that type of thing. But it's well worth the wait, y'all.